right there, start video, the bottom one.
Well, I think that's
disconnected.
have a video conference and we don't have a camera on.
Oh, okay.
Peter, were you able to get on?
Well, hi, Peter.
Oh, hi.
You have a camera now.
No, I'm using the link and we've done this before, and for whatever reason, I'm just getting something that says talking at the top. And it's giving me the option to join audio, share screen, or invite others.
Yes, so your video was on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can, no. Here, we see you here.
Okay.
So
Well, yeah, so the camera on my laptop is working, so you're seeing me.
yeah, so we're gonna stop people's videos because it's just, we're not using video today.
Okay,
So
so
we're
we
just-
don't want video.
We don't want video, you're just gonna watch what we have on the screen.
Okay, right. So the video is off right now on our computer. So
Is there something showing on the screen?
So
are
can
you guys
see
showing something on the screen that we should be seeing?
where you should just see a screen for the beginning or the start of Zoom, and it just has like, it says, it's my screen, actually, it's my desktop. And there should be just like three icons in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Okay,
so maybe we're seeing what we're supposed to, so we'll just wait.
Okay, so Ryan's sharing now, and it looks like a browser, so.
Okay, so I think we're good to go. Thank you.
Okay, so is there anybody else that has any issues on the phone?
No,
Okay,
phone
then
is good. Yep, we're good.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you for joining. I think we're going to get started. One of the other Huron consultants that's with me today is going to be doing the demonstration of SmartView, and he's going to take you through all the fun, awesome tools and tricks for SmartView. So I'm going to hand it over to him, and please make sure that if you have any questions that you bring up the questions during the demo, and we can stop and answer for everyone's benefit.
Thanks, Betsy. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's SmartView Lunch and Learn. My name is Ryan Hayes. I'm with Huron Consulting's implementation team for the UW Plan project. So today we're going to be going through SmartView, and more specifically, SmartView Ad Hoc. So many of you guys came and saw our prototype demos, and this is kind of going to be building off a little bit of that. So you're probably going to see some things that are a little bit familiar, and we're going to expand on those today as well. So what you're looking at here is the PBCS web application. And so this is the front end, the interface on the web, and behind it sits a database called SBase. And this is a very common way for you guys to interact with PBCS, but the other one that we're going to go through today is SmartView. And what that is essentially just an Excel add-on, which allows you to use Excel and all of its features and functionality to access the database directly, to view, analyze, and edit your data. So this looks familiar to you guys. This is our nav flow. I'm just going to go in here and open up one of our web forms that we showed during the prototype. And it should still be looking very familiar. You can go into these web forms and then open them using this Actions button. And you can open in SmartView. So all that does is brings up this little prompt. You hit OK, and it's going to bring us to Excel. And so what you're seeing now is that same web form that we saw on the web here in Excel. So these are exactly the same. They're tied to an artifact in PBCS, and it's still this same form. And we talked a little bit about forms in the prototype and how they're relatively structured. So we have a set of accounts. This form happens to be our by department variation of these forms. So you'll see your departments are coming down the rows as well. And then we have our 2 columns of historical data, our year-to-date, last year's budget, and then this would be for this year's budget where you would input into this column as well. So, and then additionally you have your page dimensions, which allow you to switch through fund, program, and project. But for the most part, this is still just a very structured web form. You're not able to kind of like flip things around or pivot in here. You're set with what you have. If I go back to PBCS in the web real quickly, you'll notice we have a bunch of variations for these forms, which allow flexibility in the web. But what SmartView is going to be able to do is give you that flexibility on demand, and it's going to let you create any sort of grid that you want. So it's really powerful, and it's actually one of the most powerful features of PBCS and a big differentiator from a lot of different products that are comparable. SmartView Ad Hoc lets you do whatever you want and provides a lot of flexibility for power users that are familiar with the system. So going back to Excel here, we have our web form, and it's still connected to the web form that you just saw in PBCS. What I'm about to do is I'm about to take it to ad hoc mode, which is going to happen as soon as I click this Analyze button up here. It's going to break the connection with this form, and it's going to be a free form. So it's going to no longer be connected to that artifact in the application. It's just going to be an Excel grid that's still connected to the database. So you're still going to be seeing live numbers. You're going to be pulling back live data, except the dimensions in the rows and columns and the page are going to break. And you're seeing something kind of happen just there. You'll notice that our POV got popped out into a box right here. I'm going to drag this back up into our ribbon because it's a little bit more comfortable up there. And you'll also notice that our web form got expanded out, and it's showing a lot of additional columns. So these columns were in the web initially. They were just hidden, and so you weren't seeing them before. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start cleaning it up to get a set of data that we can really show off some of the functionality in SmartView. So first, I'm going to get rid of this wedge column, which is always going to be hidden in the web forms. It's kind of just something behind the scenes that we use to make your web forms run. So I'm going to select this beginning balance member and click remove only. And that's going to just get rid of our column right there. I'm going to remove only on this year-to-date column as well. So you can see these are all, this is an additional tab that comes, sorry, I should have started with this. You'll notice in Excel that we have 2 additional tabs here. One is a SmartView tab and one is a Planning Ad Hoc tab. And these are additional tabs that kind of come in after you've installed SmartView into Excel. And it's going to give you functionality that's unique to SmartView. So you'll have all of your existing tabs that you're familiar with in Excel, as well as these new tabs for SmartView and then our Ad Hoc tab. So in our Ad Hoc tab, I just did remove only to remove our wedge column and our year-to-date column. If you have a lot of columns, that you're trying to remove, you can still use familiar Excel functionality to just delete those out. And one more thing is if you, for example, you know that you just want to look at the total year columns, and this is the one that we don't want to see, you can use this keep only. So I'm selected on total year here, and I'm going to just keep only, and that's another way to remove columns. So I'm going to do keep only on budget as well, just so we have a really clean, easy set of data that we're looking at, and you can kind of see what's happening here. We still have our departments in the rows.
Hey, could I interrupt you real quick?
Yep, go ahead.
Just real quick question. We were just wondering, between the delete and the remove only, is something different happening, or is it just a different way to do the same thing?
It depends on what you're trying to do, really. So if you want to remove only, for example, if I wanted to remove only on this salary and wages and fringe, that's the only line that it's going to remove. And so I'll click that here. and you'll see it left me with all of my other accounts, but it removed that one account. Whereas if I want to do a keep only, let's say I want to just, all I want to look at is non-salary and wages, and I don't care about anything else, what I can do is I can do keep only, and it's going to give me only non-salary and wages. And you can see that it kept all of the different departments that were going down in our rows as well.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yep. And so one last thing to show you real quickly, and these features we're going to dive into a little bit more later on, but I just want to show you the pivot real quickly. So we're going to pivot our department dimension up into our page here. And so you see it's all listed out in the rows right now. When I pivot it to our POV, it brings us down, it clears it from the rows and brings it up to here, and it becomes a drop down for you to use and select through. And so what's nice about having it up in the POV here is you can click on the little ellipses here, and it's going to open a member selection window, which is going to show you the entire hierarchy for we're in the department dimension currently. So you can select a specific member or multiple members. You'll bring them over to the right side here. So I'm going to remove all of these, and I have Whitewater checked, and I'm going to check a few more. I can bring them over to the right here. I click OK, and now I can see those members are here in our dropdown. So if I have a few departments that I really like, I know that these are the ones that I'm only going to be looking at. It's nice to have that dimension up in the POV. You select the department or any other member that you are concerned with, and then you have them right here that you can flip through pretty quickly. So after I made a few moves here, deleting columns, a couple removes and keep onlys, I did a pivot, and I switched a dimension member. So that's a lot, but it's important to remember that this is still a live connection to the database. And so the database is looking at each of these members in our columns, in our rows, and in our point of view to bring back this data. And sometimes when you're doing a lot of moves all at once, it gets a little confused. So something to remember is to just hit refresh after every move or two to make sure that the database is kind of keeping up with you. And you'll notice that our numbers changed here because it was looking at some other department or subdivision, and now we're looking at all of UW Whitewater's data. And so again, I can switch onto a different department really easily. I hit refresh right here. These two refresh buttons will do the same exact thing, and we see our updated data. So now that we have a really simple grid, I'm going to show you some the zoom in and zoom out functions, which allows you to drill in on and drill out on any dimension. So for my example here, I've got accounts in the rows, which is going to make it really simple, but you can do this with any other dimension in here as well. And I'm going to simply double click on non-salary and wages, and you'll see that it expanded to show us all of these are your major class accounts that roll up to non-salary and wages. And so you can simply double click if we want to follow some data, see where it's coming from, double click, and it's going to keep drilling in the next level to show us where that data is coming from. So now you see all the accounts that roll up to S&E. And you can keep doing that to get down the various levels of your account dimension here. And so I'm going to flip back to PBCS real quickly. And once again, mention that these forms are broken out by levels. So that's kind of what we're drilling in on right now. So depending on where you guys are planning to budget at, this is going to be really useful for you guys drilling in and out of the account dimension to see where you're budgeting at. So we have our 3 different levels, with 3 being your entire account hierarchy all the way down to the GL accounts. This form's taking a little bit to load, but you see we have our GL accounts, and then I'm going to go back to SmartView here, And so right here would be the equivalent of our level 1. And then we're getting into our level 2s. And then you can see our level 3s. And if I keep scrolling down, you can see that these all roll up to non-training, and there's a little bit of an indentation here, and non-training, and then non-training with training and development, recruiting, and the travel training and recruiting budget account roll up to our travel training and recruiting accounts, and then these accounts will roll back up to S&E, and so on, all the way back up to non-salary and wages. So it's really easy to drill all the way down using the double click, and then you can drill back up using a double right click. So it's just as easy. And that's going to close it up on us. And we can continue drilling all the way out back to our major classes. So it's really simple to just double left click and double right click will get you up and down your hierarchies pretty quickly. And it's a nice, efficient way if you're doing a lot of analysis. So
can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
So my question is, between lines 6 and 7, it's S&E and capital expense. When you double click, is there a way to have it go down instead of up when you're getting into the details?
Yeah, that's a great
S&E
question.
would stay on 6 and then everything goes underneath that?
Yep, great question. And that's something that we heard in the prototype a lot because of the web forms being very structured. They were only able to roll down like that, but we heard that you guys would like to see a lot of different things rolling up. So fortunately, Ad Hoc does provide that functionality. And it's just the setting over here. So I'm going to click on our SmartView tab. I'm going to go into options. And then in member options here, there is an ancestor position setting. And it's currently set to bottom, but I can flip that to top. And if I hit OK here and double click, you'll see that here are now the accounts that roll up to S&E, and then capital expenses comes underneath that.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem. So I actually like to look at it rolling down.
So when you did that, I'm seeing that the total non-salary and wages is still at the bottom.
Yep. So if I were to go all the way out, it was because it was already expanded. It's not going to change it. But if I go all the way out and then click it, all of those will roll up.
Thank you.
Yep. So I'm actually going to switch that back because I prefer to see it rolling down at the bottom. But the next thing that I wanted to show you is going back to our zooming in and out buttons. When I was double clicking, that's going to be the same as clicking on the. Is there a question? Okay. So when I was double clicking, that's going to do the same as if I were to just click zoom in right here. And another way to do that is to click on this little drop down arrow, and you can see that there's even more options for zooming in. So what we've been doing is we've been zooming in to the next level. And so I have that set to every time I double click, it's going to zoom into next level. And that just takes us to the one level deeper in the account structure or in any other dimension as well. But additionally, you could have it set to, I'm going to show you for dramatic effect, I'm going to keep only on non-salary and wages. And I'm going to click zoom in all levels. And so this is really useful if you want to, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So if you want to break out the entire dimension, it's going to show you everything just in that single click right there. Unfortunately, when you're zooming out, you've got to do it one at a time. There's only the zoom out by next level. But for zooming in, if you want to see the entire hierarchy just broken out like that, you can simply click all levels here. or you can zoom in to bottom level, which is going to show you the level 0 accounts. So any accounts that you can input to, your budget accounts and your GL accounts, this is going to show you, it's going to zoom into those, and it's not going to include the hierarchy. So if you noticed in the last zoom in option for all levels, it showed your level 0 accounts and then indented under the accounts that they roll up to all the way up throughout the hierarchy. The zoom in all levels is going to show you, or sorry, the zoom in bottom level is going to show you just the level 0 accounts without those parent accounts in the roll up. So this could be really useful for either inputting or reviewing the accounts that have been input to. And so one more setting, going back to SmartView tab and options. Again, in this member options tab, we see the zoom in level. If you know that you're always going to be wanting to zoom in all levels, you can change this, or to bottom level, you can change it. So that's going to change when you double click what happens there. So I have it set to next level. And so it zooms in only to the next level there. Any questions so far? I'm zooming in and out. All right, so next we're going to move on to pivoting. And this is where SmartView Ad Hoc can get really powerful. It works basically like a pivot table that's connected directly to SBase, the database behind PBCS here. So that's going to allow us to move any of our 9 dimensions. We have right now just the counts in the rows. We have our period dimension, our scenario, our years, and our version dimensions in the columns. And then our fund, program, project, and department are currently in the point of view. But with pivoting, that allows us to move any of these dimensions in between the rows, columns, and the point of view really easily to view our data in whatever way that we'd like. I'm going to do that by pulling in our fund dimension. I'm just going to drag it right down into, let me zoom in. It can be a little touchy sometimes. So I'm going to pull our funds into the columns here. And then you see that it dropped it in right above total year. It's easy to, if you want to see like funds directly above your data, it's easy to just copy that column and move it really quickly. Alternatively, you can, sorry, it's telling me to refresh so we can keep up. You can also hold the right click and drag it around like that. And so now I pulled funds into the columns. And again, you can zoom in and out here. So we're going to zoom out to our total fund and then back in one level. And you see you have some analysis by fund for the non-salary and wages. And so if I zoom in a little bit on that, you can see how quickly this gets pretty powerful by flipping around different dimensions into the rows and the columns, leaving some up here for you to kind of switch back and forth from. And then when you hit refresh, it's going to update all of your data. So this is the easiest way to get a live look at the data because it's connecting right in right now. So anything that's been entered, if you're in the middle of your budget cycle and you know people have kind of like made some changes, this is an easy way to go in and see what's happening right now. So we have our funds in the columns here. I'm going to pull our programs into the rows and then back these out as well. and then zoom back in. And so you can see we now have our set of accounts that we were looking at by program 0, student services, that same set of accounts by program 1, institutional services, going down the rows there, still broken out by fund. And these are just some examples, but I'm sure that you guys have much better ideas in your head for how you would like to see this, perhaps pulling in department as well. And then if I zoom out on program here, and then zoom, I'm going to keep only on non-salary and wages. I just want to kind of show you guys how these work a little bit. So one of the questions that we asked in the prototype roadshow was the dimension order in the rows that you preferred, whether it was like account and then program or program then account. In SmartView ad hoc, it kind of comes down to, and that was just the preference of how you like to see the data. So whether you like to see it, or you'd like to see all of the accounts by a single program. And you'll notice I double clicked on programs here first, and then I double clicked on our account. So it broke it out in that order. But if I go back, and I double click on accounts first, so our set of accounts is broken out, and then I double click on programs. The other way. Program. So I have programs broken out here.
With your program as the first one.
Yep. So sorry, so we have accounts expanded out here, and then if I double click on programs, that's going to show me all the programs for a given account. And you can zoom out a little bit, and you see that we still have it broken out by fund, and all of the programs for all of our major cost accounts. Now you can see this grid got pretty big when we brought in a few different dimensions and started expanding on a lot of different things. So the next thing that's going to be really useful for you guys is the suppression setting. And so again, I went to our SmartView tab and our options. I clicked into our data options this time, and we have options to suppress our rows or suppress our columns. So I'm going to suppress no data on our rows, and you can also see that there's a 0 and a no access option. So what the difference is here, if there's no data in that given intersection, it's going to be no data or missing. And that's what you see for a lot of these cells over here. There's just nothing in that intersection right now. No one's input anything and nothing's been loaded. So there's no data there. If someone input a 0 or a calculation produced a 0, there would be data there. So maybe you want to suppress that, but likely not using the 0. And then no access here is going to come down to security. So whatever security is provisioned for you, so say you don't have access for something, it's going to show you a little hashtag no access in the cells here, but you're still going to be able to see the intersection. It's just not going to show you the data. So if you don't want to see that at all, you can turn on the no access suppression here. So we're going to suppress no data for rows. I'm going to click OK and refresh our database. And you can see that it's consolidated it a lot more into something that's much more manageable and easy to analyze. And going back into here, you'll notice that we still have some of our funds that don't have any data in it, and that comes to the suppressed columns. So maybe you want to see things that way, maybe you want to suppress those as well. You have that option too. So.
Are there any questions so far? folks on the phone?
All right. Going forward, so what we're looking at right now is the alias of all of these members for all of our dimensions. So S&E, our programs, and our funds. I'm going to simplify our set of data again real quickly by pivoting our programs back up to the POV. And so you can see we're looking at aliases here for budget, total year, GPR. But there's member names that are behind all of these as well. So let me simplify a little bit more. So for example, budget, the member name for budget is plan, and the alias is budget. So I can simply type in plan here, and it's going to pick that up as well. And the data is not going to update here, or the data is not going to update because it's the same. But if I were to type in actual and then refresh it, you'll see that the data is updated. So you can also just type in a member or the alias, and SmartView is going to pick that up and recognize what it is, and it's going to show you the alias. So that's probably useful for fund a lot. Say you just want to see fund 102. You just type in F102 as our member name, and it's going to show you the data and the alias for fund 102. So that's really simple to kind of manipulate these grids, especially once you start getting more familiar with the system and you understand the hierarchies a lot more. That can be really powerful. Like, you just kind of know what you want. You can type it into the cells directly, hit refresh, and it's going to pull up what you're looking for.
So you typed in F space 102?
It was F underscore.
F underscore.
102.
I follow that.
Yeah, so we're going to provide you guys with the naming conventions, and being PowerWorks users, you guys are going to get pretty familiar with them pretty quickly. So again, so I can just either type in to a cell, or I can copy and paste. I'm going to copy final over to here, and if I hit refresh, you'll notice the data is going to update because we're looking at a different version now. And then if for some reason you want to look at the member names as well, or instead I should say, you can, this button right here, change alias, is currently set to default, so that's going to show us our aliases. But if we want to see our member names, we can flip that, and now you see the naming conventions behind everything. So here's our fund. The years are FY18, FY19, and then flipping back to the alias, you can see. So it's going to pick up whether you type in the alias or the member name, and then it's going to give you the data.
And switching forward between with the change alias button, right? It's a good way to learn the system member names, and 99% of the time, the system member names are going to be shorter, right? So if you're a heavy power user and you understand the system member names, you can type that in and quickly refresh and get that data, right? Because you're not going to type that whole alias in for 102, right? So that's a good way to flip back and forth and kind of, oh, this is the system member name. After a while, you kind of get familiar with it and you just type it in. It's second nature. Right?
Thank you. So next thing I want to show you guys is that the report building capabilities, or more analysis that you can do using these. So I'm just going to copy our years over here and give us a simple budget to actual comparison. So I'll refresh here. And I'm going to break this out a little bit more just so we have some more numbers. But you'll see that we have our non-salary, capital expenses, S&E, and some of the accounts that are rolling down to S&E here. We have them for FY19 actual and FY19 budget. And the great thing about SmartView being in Excel is that you can use Excel formulas and functionality. So I can just type in here, name our column variance, do a simple formula, and it's going to give us that, our answer. So we can really quickly create some reports that are useful to us. And once you've kind of gotten your grid set here, you're like, this is what I want to be looking at. Another useful option that you can go to is our formatting tab. And so right now we're using cell styles. So this is going to give us this formatting that you see here with the blue identifying that we're looking at dimension members, and the gray identifying that we're looking at data. But if I flip this over to use Excel formatting, and then checking this is just a good idea because it keeps the formatting when you're pivoting things around as well. I'm going to hit OK here. You can use all the same formatting that you normally do in Excel. So if I were to apply this formatting, if I were to say add $signs, before I had done that, and then I hit refresh here, it's going to wipe away that formatting and bring you back to what you were at. It's going to get rid of those $signs. But by flipping that, you can now hit refresh, and it keeps those $signs in here for your report.
The one distinction between using cell styles and using Excel formatting, so if you look at the grid, right, we have the blue, we have the gray. So the gray means that's a read-only cell, right? You cannot input anything in here. If you start expanding to the lowest level of the hierarchy, you're going to get into an intersection where you can input data, and that's going to become yellow, right? So cell styles kind of provide you a guide on where you can input data versus where it's read-only. When you switch over to your Excel formatting, you lose all that, right? So that's more used from a reporting perspective. If you wanted to create a nicely looking report, right, you would use the Excel functions, and because you're just looking at to retrieve data and look at a report. But if you're analyzing this data, if you're drilling in, drilling out, and really looking to see what's at the lowest level and potentially change the data, you would want to use the cell styles because then it really tells you where you can change the data.
Absolutely. So now that we have our grid set here, another reporting feature that you guys might really like is the cascade feature here. So you'll see we have our departments up in the POV, and we have a pretty simple grid here. If you use this cascade feature, put it in a new workbook, it's going to let you select your departments here, as well as any other members. So for members in the point of view, so let's add a couple of these. So we have UW Whitewater total, and then a few departments below it. Just want to look at program total here, so we get data. And if I click OK, lots happening. It's running this grid for those departments that I've selected. So if you're a budget owner for more than one department, this could be a really useful feature. You'll see down here that we have a tab with the same grid for our UW Whitewater total, and then it's also broken out showing real-time data for each of the departments that we selected as well. So you could run this, and I only chose to run it on departments, but you can run it on any dimension too. So if you want to do it by fund or program, it's easy to break it out, and you have a different grid for each one of those as well. One other feature that's not so much ad hoc, but going back to Matt's point of using Excel formatting and really being able to kind of work with that to create reports that you aren't comfortable with and familiar with and look good to you. In the options here, again, we're selected on use Excel formatting. I'm going to open up a brand new web form. So please keep in mind here that I'm an admin, so I'm able to see some things that you guys won't be seeing in the future. But I'm going to come in straight through SmartView here and go into our forms. So all of those forms that you were able to see in PBCS, you can open them directly from Excel as well. So you don't even have to log into the web. You can just log in through Excel, come here and open up this form. And you'll see that it was the same exact form as before. And one thing that I wanted to show you actually, this formatting, I need to save it as my default option so that it comes through when I open up a new form. But if I do that again, so I'm going to have to circle back with you guys on this feature, but essentially what's going to happen is it will open up this entire grid without the blue formatting and the gray. It's going to be just like you would open up a blank Excel sheet, except with all of your, so it would look like this, except with all of your data and your rows and your columns in there. So from there, you could apply any formatting that you guys like, your standard UW formatting, and so on. So we just opened up a form directly from SmartView, and that's really useful if you want to just input data or review it based on a form that you know exists already, something you're familiar with, and you know that's where my people are budgeting at. You can just go straight to a form. Or another powerful feature is opening up an ad hoc grid directly from Excel. So you'll see here we have our application. This is our forms folder, and these are the two databases. They're going to be in the application. So this is the one that you're going to be budgeting to, UW Plan. They're going to be, you saw the naming conventions really recently, so this is our prototype one, but it'll be named respective to your pod and your institution. But if I click on this, and then click Ad Hoc Analysis down here, I'm going to open up an ad hoc grid, which was the same as clicking the Analyze button on a form, which doesn't exist up here, but when we were in the forms, this Analyze button is what breaks the connection from a form and turns it into an ad hoc grid. Here, we opened up an ad hoc grid directly, just connected to this, but with no prior settings, or we just have a wide open form. So you'll see our 9 departments, or our 9 dimensions: account, departments, period and years, and then scenario, version, fund, program, and project, all in the POV again. So this is really useful, again, when you're familiar with the system, you know exactly where you're trying to go. You can open up an ad hoc grid like this, and I think it's easiest to pull all of these into the columns because I know what I'm looking for. And so for project, I'm just gonna zoom in. I would just want to keep project total. And what I'm eventually working towards here is to find some data. So I'm gonna go through and select members from all of our dimensions one at a time. I want our program total. I want our fund total. I want to look at our final version. I want to look at our budget scenario. I want to look at last year's budget for total year. So if I refresh, you'll see it updated a couple aliases here. We still don't have any data because our accounts and departments aren't set. So again, I know exactly where I'm trying to go to because I'm a budget owner. So I'm going to just look at UW Whitewater total. All I have to do is type in N. And then I'm going to expand on accounts, and you see we have some data. So I can keep drilling in to our accounts here and very quickly get to where I was trying to go, just by typing in or zooming in on all of our departments. And it gives you a clean slate from the beginning. So if you know exactly where you need to get to, this is essentially the fastest way to do it. Are there any questions?
So a couple of comments on the pure blank slate ad hoc. Most likely when you're going to start using SmartView, and again, this is a teaser, right? So we're going to go through a bunch of different training sessions to get you guys comfortable with this tool from a power user perspective. But you're mostly going to start from a web form, right? What Ryan did in the beginning, where he goes from a web form into SmartView, and then you click analyze, right? You already have data out there, and now you can start drilling up, drilling down, expanding. Vice versa with really the blank slate ad hoc, where it doesn't really provide it. You're basically at the top of the house. It's a great learning tool to understand the dimensionality, right? Because it'll bring you to the top of the house, and now you're starting to, it's kind of like let's find some data, right? And you start expanding, and you start learning how the hierarchies are structured, right? So again, most likely in the beginning, you're going to start from the web form, but then try to kind of explore the ad hoc functionality to really understand how the hierarchies are working together.
I had a question about the aliases. I joined a little bit late, so maybe this is where some of my confusion is. So I'm kind of getting a little bit lost with when we would use the aliases. Is it more of like a shortcut kind of a thing? And if it is there, like, can you double click on a cell and it tells you what all the aliases are? Or is that like some document we just have to learn? I guess I'm a little confused on where the aliases would come into regular practice. I guess I'm looking at it from what I see, it's like shortcuts. Is that correct?
So I would think the member names are actually going to be your shortcuts. The aliases are designed to be user-friendly. So instead of looking at something like, so you see, I'm going into fund here, you see
W Whitewater is a good example.
Or, yeah, fund or W Whitewater, like UW Whitewater, you know what this is. This is Whitewater Total Institution. But if I show you the member name that we use behind it, you see it's just an N. And for fund, it's F_100, F_101. You see it for the accounts as well. It's A_comp expense. And we do this, we use these naming conventions behind the scenes, the actual member names, to keep everything in the application unique. It just kind of helps with integrations and everything behind the scenes that we do. So member names are mostly for us building out the system. And then for you power users, if you know it, going off of the example that was said before, it's a lot easier to type in F_100 than it would be to type in 100-non-appropriated revenue. So you'll eventually get familiar with both of them, and this grid will pick up either one. So it's kind of preference what you type in, but the aliases are just used for your convenience so that you know what kind of.
So then are those selections like available somewhere? Is that when the data just all pulls in, they're all there, and then you go to that change alias and it will just give you the different options?
Yeah, so change alias, the only option is going to be either you're looking at aliases or you're looking at the actual member name. So you can do either of those to pull in the data. If I change it back to
Show member selection. I think that's going to drive that.
Okay.
Right.
Yep. So if I pivot one of these back to the POV, we have our funds up here. And you can see in member selection, this is our hierarchy. And so it's broken out, and all of the dimension is set the way it is. So that's not going to change. It's just going to be what you see is flipping between fund and alias, or sorry, member name and alias. But you're going to be able to pull in data depending on where you put each member. Whether it's the fund or the alias doesn't impact that.
So these, to see the possibilities, those are under that member selection of what's there, and then what you can drill into.
Yep, so if you want to see the entire hierarchy, the best way to do that is to move a dimension up to the POV up here. And then you can click on the little ellipses here, and it's going to bring out the member selection window where you can then drill in and go find exactly what you want. The only,
sorry, could you just say what POV stood for again? I forgot.
That's your point of view.
Okay.
So the trade-off here is you can bring in multiple members into your POV, and they show up in this drop-down, but you're only looking at one of those at a time. Whereas if you pull them into your rows or columns, you can drill in, drill out, and expand it, and look at multiple members at the same time. So it's a little bit of a trade-off.
Okay. I think we have to play with it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But does
Right.
that answer your?
I think we're going to have to just maybe play with it a little bit. So it sounds like there's certain things that we'll just have to learn what the aliases are. You know, like the F100, you know, must be in a list somewhere. We'll just have to learn what those are if we want to use those aliases. Kind of drilling down, we'll get certain pieces of information. But I think there's just some as we're going through, it'll be a learning process.
And we'll be providing documentation that kind of matches all of the member names to the aliases for you guys
Okay.
as well.
Okay, thanks.
So could I ask one question? I think I'm assuming that all the power users will have access to this SmartView you're showing us with the implementation year of PBCS. Is that correct?
Yeah, so all users will have access to this.
All users will. Okay.
All power users.
All power users. All power users, right?
Yeah, not all. So you might ask yourself a question like looking at this, why would I use a web form, right, if I have so much power here? The point of a web form is to keep a process structure, right? So you're going to have a lot of users in the system. You want to make sure that the users are inputting data into the right intersection. With SmartView, now you're opening up that to, it's a little bit more loose, right? So it is designed for power users so they understand the structure and they understand how it's all laid out or where they can input data. So, just keep that in mind, right? So power users, that's why we're kind of rolling this out to power users so they have this capability because it is very powerful, but we want to make sure we still keep a consistent process and somewhat of a controlled process.
Yeah, so we agree, and with the power users having access to this, and we just wanted to make sure it was going to be available to us with the implementation year. So thanks.
Are there any other questions? You guys have anything? Good. Was this helpful for you guys?
So just one other question.
It's kind of hard to speak to that when, we're not driving, and there's no data, and, if we're able to get into a test environment and play around with it.
Of course,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah. And we're going to be,
but, just from the overview, it looks
can you kind of imagine the power it's going to bring you in terms of slicing and dicing information?
And there will be more hands-on sessions that you guys get to use the actual application. I'm sure you'll get a lot better feel and understanding for it once you get your hands on it as well.
I think there was a question on the phone.
Yeah, just, so like for some of those fields, like you typed in final, so is it all of those fields you can change change the name and then hit refresh and it gives you different numbers? Or is it just certain things that you can change where it'll actually recalculate the numbers?
Nope, it's going to be all of these fields. So you can see that the formatting here shows us, sorry, I should refresh first. The formatting here shows us that we're in the grid. And so whenever you type something in there, it's going to pick up. So any of these you can change by just typing into it, hitting refresh.
Okay, so any of those columns, because I think like the numbers, it was like a yellow cell, but so for any of these more headers, it's any of them, really. Is that correct?
Yeah, so can you repeat that?
Oh, so for the, like when you wanted to enter numbers in earlier, it was a yellow cell, and that said you could enter into it as opposed to the gray. Yeah, that one.
Right.
But so for the headers, it sounds like it's any of those blue headers.
Yeah, so this is a web form still.
Okay.
And you can see like I'm double clicking here and it's not going to let me do anything. I can also, and I tried to type right here. So it's a protected sheet. So it's not going to let me do the same things in a web form that it would in an ad hoc grid. But like you were saying, there's these yellow cells, which are the input cells. And those would actually be in an ad hoc grid as well if you were to get down to level 0 for all of the dimensions. So you can only input to level 0, and we've been at a much higher level than that during this demo here. But you can drill all the way down to get to those input cells using account or using ad hoc. And you can see those cells as well.
Okay, so more the standard web forms are set, but the ad hoc things, those are where we would have the ability to do what you were kind of showing with the final and change budget to actual. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So again, so SmartView is the Excel add-in, and that's pretty much going to just be your connection to the database. It's a different interface than the web, and you can access forms, which are still the structured web forms that you saw on the web, or you can do ad hoc in SmartView. So those are kind of different. They're forms and ad hoc. You can start ad hoc from a form, but as soon as you click Analyze here, it breaks that connection. And now you can do all of your different things. So I just double clicked on this column that wasn't letting you do anything before. Now you can see that it expanded out to show your months.
Can I save this form and give it to some end user to do data entry?
Yep, so you can save this form offline, and then you would give it to an end user. They would input it and send it back to you. And then what you would have to do then is open up the same form and make a connection and copy and paste that data into your form that's connected. And you would only be able to copy and paste into these yellow cells here.
Sorry, I was just going to interrupt very quickly. Milwaukee, we're leaving. Our room is transitioning here, so we just wanted to thank you. This was very helpful.
All right, thank you guys. Thanks. Yep, so you would save the form off. They would send you back the form with their data in it. You would reopen that same form, connect it. You make sure you're connected. You'd sign in. Then you would copy and paste the data from their form into yours that's connected. And instead of hitting refresh, you would hit submit here. So if you were to copy and paste in and then hit refresh, it would wipe that data away. It's going to pull, this button's going to pull back what's in the system right now. And submit data is going to let you put data into the database.
Okay, so if I had a variety of sub departments that I just wanted to have them enter and then review that entry and then say, yes, this looks good. I'm gonna then submit the data. I could do that
Yes.
using this kind of
Yep.
form. Okay, thank you.
Would you
Yeah,
have
that's
to
how-
paste, sorry, would you have to paste it row by row into just those cells, or can you take their whole sheet and kind of paste it over and it'll only populate those cells?
So if you were to, let's see here, if you were to, I'm going to keep only on S&E, and then I'm going to zoom in all levels, or shoot, no, sorry, I wanted to zoom in bottom level. If you were to zoom into bottom level, it would show you only the accounts that are inputable, excluding the roll-up accounts. So it'd be comparable to the input forms that we showed you in the prototype that don't have the roll-ups, where you can copy and paste large amounts of data in really quickly in consecutive cells.
This is also a good example of, he did all levels on S&E. So imagine how many rows it's expanding, right? So just keep that in mind, right? As you're working through the data, because it will crash Excel if you're going, and you start expanding, millions and millions of rows.
Yeah, it's working hard. Yep. So you see all of the cells here, and then we do have our roll-ups. But if I had hit zoom into bottom level, it would exclude these, and you'd be able to copy and paste consecutive data cells in.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, and we are just about out of time here. So I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you guys got a lot out of this. We're looking forward to more sessions in the future with you guys.
And definitely send us questions if, throughout this session, if you saw something that you have questions on, send those over. We'll be more than happy to answer anything that you might be wondering about.
Where do you want questions sent to? You send them to Dave Sage, dsage@uwsa.edu. Since Jane is out on PTO. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.